Hi, I'm Everett. Welcome back to the shop. This week there hasn't been much coming in as far as interesting mail or anything like that. No new stickers this time. I did get a couple packages from eBay, but those are for parts of the project down the road, so I'll hang on to those bits until then. So really, we're just going to jump in and carry on with the shaper. At this point, all I've gotten together is the gear train from the last video, part 3, and I've also given the rest of the machine a second coat of paint. So at this point we can now start working on the lever arm. The thing is, the lever arm needs work, as well as the sliding block and a few other parts before the arm will actually move the ram back and forth. I just want to make sure all the mechanisms work, so for the next video or 2 or 3, I'm not sure how many it'll be, what we'll do is we'll focus on getting the lever mechanism working, whatever extra fasteners and stuff and parts I'm going to need for that, and that'll be the next video or 2. Now, I may be going into more detail than a number of people want to see about measurements and different things that I'm approaching here and the reasons why I approach it. That's fair enough. I know some people would rather just see, a quick process and the end product. That's totally cool. I don't take offense if people want to fast forward. That's fine. However, I will try, as I do my videos, to still include more detail as to certain measurements and things within reason, just because I like to show the thought process of why I approach things the way I do. Again, any of you who do this sort of thing for a living or have way more experience than me, I'm all ears. If there's something that you have a suggestion for that could be done better, hey, we all want to improve and learn from each other. This is what YouTube's about. So that being said, I'm going to do some measuring here and explain what our next step is. I can't just put this lever arm back in as it sits, well, for a couple of reasons. I could. It's just going to clatter and bang like nobody's business. One of the reasons why I can't just assemble it as it is, well, I'm going to have to make a new clamping bolt and block that goes in the bull gear. Yeah, this one here was, I'd like to say use the word home manufactured, but that is really, yeah, that's being generous. So this whole setup needs to be replaced. This is the bolt that goes through the sliding block. This goes into the T-slot on the bull gear, this part here, and clamps it down. That then slides up and down in the slot of the lever arm. Now, that is not kosher. That has a lot of slop in it. Now, as far as measuring the block itself, I've just calibrated this micrometer to a good Mitutoyo standard, and we're sitting 1 inch 304 on it, on the block. And you can tell, well, some of you built it up with braze at one point, and the other side shows some wear and such. I'll set that aside. The inside of this slot, like I say, if this thing's been brazed together once before, I mean, the coast side or the return side of the slot on this side, it's got some what looks like filing marks and such in it. It doesn't really look hand scraped or anything, but the side that's been brazed together, the drive side, yeah, it's pretty rough. If I take an adjustable parallel and run one end to the other, come on, there, we have 1 inch 3. Well, almost 1 inch 314. So, like I say, that block here, not happy going up and down. I don't like that fit. Now, Neil from N.E.M.E.S, his channel, he came up with this similar challenge on his sliding ram lever. And so what he wound up doing was he actually so he had a register on the back side and machined these reinforcing ribs just a little bit on the top to give a register that allowed him to clamp it on the table and give him something to work against. I think I'm going to do something similar. The return slide side is actually in much better shape than the drive slide side, so we'll use this as our primary, get this cleaned up, and then machine the drive side to match it. So what I'm going to do right now is, because this part here has all been machined on this face. I'm going to use this portion here and this portion here as a register to set against the table, so that we can then take this portion here, clean it off to make a register, and then flip it back over to do the inside groove. One of the things we're going to do at some point is make a new sliding block to match our new dimension inside here, because it's going to be, again, slightly oversized from this, which is oversized from stock. For that, thankfully, I do have a small piece of 660 bronze. And it's always nice when you get the end of the rod with a mill stamp, 660 rod. So this is good bearing bushing bronze, and that's what we're going to make this block out of. The original was steel, but I'd rather use bronze just because it's a little more forgiving. So I'll get this cleaned up, and we'll get it set up for the cutting. So we have our lever arm bolted down to the table on a pair of 1, 2, 3 blocks, and on the back side here, because there actually is a little bit of a twist to this thing, I mean, when they braze it together, apparently they got it close but not 100%. I'm just trying to take a bit of an average of different things to try to get one good clean plane here matching up with a plane, even if it's stepped down a bit over here, and then the internal surfaces will be matched up to this. The hinge here is like, you know, 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees off of vertical. Considering what I'm doing and what I have to work with, that's just going to have to be close enough. Otherwise, if I tried to get this completely straight, I'd carve so much away out of the center, I'd lose strength. If I have to make a new lever arm down the road, I will. I'm just trying to make the best out of what I have. So, got 3/4 inch end mill in there, got her set to 285 RPM. That should give me about the right surface speed for, you know, a light setup like this. Alright, just need a 600th thou block or a shim or something underneath this side as compared to this side, and then it'll be nice and level. Just for everybody, this my brother-in-law Ross, he and his family are here visiting, and we're hanging out in the shop together. Yeah, it's been fun the last week here trying to get time for us to come out and do something just with, well, we have 4 little boys, 5 and under, running around the house right now, so it's evening after bedtime. So this is playtime for us. All right, what we've done is after creating those register points on the other side, today's sketchy setup is now clamping this to the table, this side on the registers that we made, and then this side here needed a 600th thou offset. I just found what I could in the shop. There are a couple feeler gauges and a couple pieces of high-speed tool bit and whatever. Something hard just to be able to give it enough parallelism this way. Before we start cutting, I needed to make sure, because this time the y-axis is critical in keeping it parallel. What I've done is there's a shiny spot all the way along on the coast side of the lever arm, and so I put the dial indicator on that. Now running from one side to the other, I have, well, I'm just watching the little needle that's sitting next to the 5. Yeah, I've got basically about 1,000th over whatever that is, 6 inches, give or take. Yeah, and that's, you know, even then you can see the needle bouncing as it's going along because of the surface. That's about as good as I'm going to get. So we'll clean up this side, just take a skim pass off of here. Same thing with this side, a skim pass, just to give us 2 parallel surfaces. This is about as good as we're going to be able to get for this lever arm. Again, it's not perfect, but it's what I have to work with. If it causes problems down the road and misalignment issues or whatever, I'll make another one out of plate, similar to the way that Pete Verbree did. But for now, this is the way we're going to roll. It should still be good enough to make us some chips. One handy use of the new homemade indicator holder. I'm very thankful for this thing, because the nice thing about these things is you can leave your tool in and you can use it. Touch off. Just for heck of it, I'm going to start with a 5/thou cut. I don't want to take more than I have to. It's already slightly oversized from where it was stock. I am happy with that. That is way better. Again, we don't want to take more than we have to. So let's start with 5. We can always go more. All right. It's close, but I want a slightly better finish. So I think I'll do a climb pass on the way back. I'll add a couple thou and just do a climb pass. I think considering what we're up against, that's going to have to be good enough. 1 inch, 321. All right. So 1 inch, 321. So we'll be shooting when we make the little block for about, well, I'm going to shoot for about that size. And then we can shave it down to probably a couple thou smaller. I want to keep the tolerances on this reasonably tight, but not too tight. So 1 inch, 321 is the number we have to write down. And next step is to make a new one of these guys. But if we're going 1 inch 320 there, then the width of our block here that we need, we're going to shoot for, say, 1 inch 318. And as far as length, actually length is not as critical as the width. Length is 1 inch 750. I use a micrometer across here and across the wear surfaces just because that's our more critical measurement. So roughly 175. Yep. And then depth, 1 inch, yeah, basically 1 1/4, 1.25-ish. And then our bushing goes in the center, so it has to have a clearance fit on that central hole. Okay, 878, 887, so that's about a 10 thousandths clearance. How big are we going to make it? Well, if it's, say, 879 and a half, 880, let's give it a 5 thou clearance. It should be okay. Yeah. 878 and a half, 878, yeah. Let's give it an 885. 7 thousandths clearance on there shouldn't be too bad because we have a, well, on second thought, let's shoot for 883. We can always loosen it up. It's harder to tighten it. And then depth from the top, 155 thousandths. And then our outside diameter here just needs to be a clearance, 1.134. Oh yeah, we got what, 9/10 thousandths, so. 1 inch 135, 1 inch 134, close enough. So that should get us in the ballpark as far as a new block, at which point later on we'll deal with the oil feed hole, but that will go on this surface. I'll go cut a chunk off of this thing with a bit of clearance so I can clean up the ends and then bring you back in. Well, Harold used to say that every job begins on a bandsaw until he got his fancy new sort of chop saw. But this may not have started on the bandsaw, this whole process, but bandsaw still makes an appearance. There we are. That'll work just fine. Start by squaring up this end. There, that would be good enough because that's going to get cut off. That this material, we're just squaring up ends. Man, bronze is messy stuff. Bronze dust all over. I'll just make sure that the parallel is, I can feel the parallel square to the end. 1 inch 855. So I need 105 thousandths off. So if I slide the dial indicator over with it touched off, go to 1 inch 105. There we go. And that should, when I'm finished facing this down to where it says 1 inch, will be the right length. Man, that's messy stuff. I got glitter all over the place. Looks like I've been at a rave. All right. 1 inch 749, good enough. Yep, and this lathe will need a thorough cleaning after this, I guess. So we're now to length. Now we can take it over to the mill and we'll start milling our sides. I probably could have done the whole thing in the lathe, but I don't know. The mill needs some love, so go set up in the mill. So to start with, I want to do the wide dimension because that way if I miss, I can always use the other side. What we're going to do is we're going to start by making one flat, smooth surface here on this side. Well, there's no real side to a circle, but this side of a circle, if you will. And then what we'll do is flip it over and cut to thickness. One thing I'd like to do is use a fly cutter and experiment to see what kind of a surface finish I can get. So we'll do a few passes on this with the 3/4 inch end mill, then we'll try with the fly cutter before we get to full depth. Now for this cut to start with, all I've done is I've scribed a line up from the outside edge here in as far as we need to go for the first side. The other side I'll measure to be a little bit more precise. But this gets us started. Alrighty. There we go. Ross has just finished doing the last roughing cut there with the hand mill. What we're going to do is we're now going to try the fly cutter and see what kind of a finish it gives. Now theoretically 285 RPM should still be okay for running a fly cutter and this stuff. 10 thousandths cut. Before I put my finger in there. You know, I like that finish, and it's not a mirror, but it's got a little bit of roughness to it. I mean, it's smooth, but there's just a bit of a surface texture. That's going to be great because this way the oil actually has somewhere to ride instead of being slung off like if it was a mirror finish. What we've done is we flipped it over, set it in parallels in the vise here, nice and solid, parallels aren't going anywhere, and then we've roughed it down and did one pass with the fly cutter, well, a roughing pass with the fly cutter if you can call it that. It's fun, my nephew's now joined us, my brother-in-law and I. He's watching the block come into shape. Now, this block here, last measurement I got was 1 inch 327 and a half. So we're going to take another, 9 or so off and go from there. Yeah, see this part here? Remember how these parts here just sort of disappeared when it's running? Yeah. That's why we need to keep our fingers out of the way. Well, if I didn't know that, I'd say that'd be 1 inch 318 and a half. So we're going to call that good, because it will have a little bit of wear as time goes on. Now, we can do a little bit of a test though. So that, ooh, a little bit of tight spot there. Oh yeah, okay. I'm going to have to draw file this little bit of brass here, but otherwise, yeah, for whatever reason, it must not have cut as well on that bit of brass there with the side milling, but otherwise, everything else, that's a nice fit. I like that. That's just enough for a little bit of grease. Yeah, I like that. So we now have this surface and this surface. The sliding surfaces. What we need to do now is machine this side and that side, the back side of the sliding block, and then make the feature for the bushing in the center here. I'll probably make the feature for the bushing in the lathe, but we'll get us up and we'll cut the block to its final dimensions, at least in the mill. See, who's to say a hobby machine shop can't be a family activity?
That's right.
That's right.
So this is why Ross needs one.
Yeah.
Keep going. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe you can see that. Maybe you can't see it in the camera. I'm happy with that one. I'm about 1/10 of a thou under, according to the micrometer. In the meantime, what I've done is, just to avoid, boring stuff, I've already indicated it in. You can spin it around here. I have the center here sitting in the center punch that I made in the center mark of where it was. That's about as good as it's going to get. It's close enough for what we're doing. It's a 5 thou radius, 10 thou diameter, but it's only touching intermittently. Our little pin. Yeah. 82, 883. Again, my brother-in-law Ross is here for a visit, and he's an engineer, and he said, well, why don't you just take and polish this up? It's got some dings in it. And yeah, well, he's more than just a pretty face. Well, so that's what we're going to do after this. I'll leave that bore size just the same it is, and then we'll polish this up after this is dismounted. So what we'll do is we'll bring this up. That'll be close enough for a touch off. I'll make this little indicator here say 150 thousandths. Then we just need to come out this way 1/8 of an inch, and that way 150 thousandths. There we are. That fits nicely there. And, well, yeah, of course it's not going to go through. Duh. I still have to polish it. And what I see sticking up on the shoulder here, the stick out there, is approximately the same stick out we see there. So there we go. I still have to, as I say, I still have to deburr this, and we still have to put the oil feed hole in the one end. But that's 95 and 98% of our sliding block. Okay, after a little bit of polishing and cleaning up, that slides on there. Just like that. I like it. How's that? Sticks out the back with the right prominence, out the front. All right. And yes, it's still running a little slowly. That's okay. It's okay to drill a little slower if you're trying to be careful. I have not blunted this. Drill bit, but in this setup we should be okay. There we go. Now there's going to be a bit of an issue here in trying to use the 7/16 drill bit in here. Because I don't want to blunt off any other ones, I'm going to use the one I did from earlier. However, because I don't have a knee and I can't get this up in there, it's too short, we're going to use the 7/16 collet and grip it right about there. That'll be enough just to put the little well in it. Again, not the ideal, but it's what I have to work with. Now the end well here, it just has to go down, it looks like a bit of a 1/16 of an inch shoulder there. I'm thinking I may make it just a hair deeper, just to add a little bit more capacity. I don't think it's going to affect the structure of it, so let's do that. This will just be an eyeball thing. This is the drill I blunted earlier to bore out the center of this block. And try not to get into the actual serious meat of it, because that would ruin my day. Yeah, I like that. It's just a hair deeper than the original, gives a little bit more capacity, and it's not going to affect the structure any. A little bit of a burr on the inside I got to get rid of, but there we go. New block, right width. See, the old one's a little too narrow. A little well on the top. I like it. So I think we're going to call it there for this video. I know we've only worked on 2 parts, but they're kind of critical parts to make sure that they work properly together. Next video, what we'll do is we'll get the remaining hardware put together to get the lever arm in the machine. We'll put it in and we'll get the RAM running. We still have a lot to go with motor, table, the wiring, the clapper box, all that fun stuff. But it's slowly coming along. I just kind of hard to find time sometimes. So hopefully you'll join me next time for getting those parts in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Even if you're not subscribed but you happen to come by, thanks for coming. And we'll see you next time.